Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into Malcolm Gladwell's absolutely fascinating and honestly a little bit unsettling reevaluation of virality from his book, The Revenge of the Tipping Point. We're going to completely shift our perspective here. We're stepping right away from that comforting old myth of organic natural growth, and we're looking directly into the stark reality of engineered social epidemics. So let's just dive right into this. 25 years ago, Gladwell taught us that the tipping point was this kind of magical moment. Small ideas just naturally snowballed into massive trends. It was organic, right? It was accidental. But today's reality, it's entirely different. In our current landscape, one that's totally dominated by algorithmic social media network clusters, virality is absolutely no longer a natural occurrence. It is engineered. Today, powerful operators, massive corporations, and really savvy actors, they incubate and architect these trends in a lab. They treat them almost exactly like biological viruses. So, here's the blueprint we're decoding today. First, the myth of organic virality. Second, the superspreader multiplier. Third, the cluster density explosion. Fourth, piercing the ambient overstory. Fifth, dark side manipulations. And finally, architecting your social epidemic. Let's get to it. All right, part one, the superspreader multiplier, weaponizing the hyper-connected. Okay, the absolute foundation of this new architecture is understanding that viral acceleration is literally never a uniform event. It just doesn't spread equally from person to person. Consider the sheer leverage involved here for a second. A microscopic 2%, these are your hyper-connected B2B agents or your cult users, they control 80% of a brand's entire viral momentum. The remaining 98%, they're just standard network nodes. According to Gladwell's updated framework, if you don't have that highly leveraged 2% on your side, you simply do not have a trend, period. Picture a wide network mesh grid made up of standard consumers, all just sitting there, completely inert. Nothing is happening. But then you locate and activate a single, giant crimson node, the hyper-connected superspreader. Instantly, that node pulses, sending this electric gold current to all the surrounding nodes. Suddenly, you're looking at a network conversion with 10x velocity. Viral acceleration is never just a uniform baseline distribution event. True momentum relies entirely on locating and weaponizing these specific, highly leveraged superspreader nodes to ignite the entire grid. Without them, your message is just sitting there in the dark. Moving right along to part two, the cluster density explosion, condensing cognitive capital. It is time to violently destroy the outdated marketing myth that you have to appeal to fragmented demographics everywhere all at once to go viral. Gladwell points out that modern virality does not begin in broad, open markets. Instead, it gets incubated inside what he calls an elite systemic cell. This is a highly dense, tightly closed system. It could be a specific digital forum, a really tight-knit corporate network, or even just a localized geographic neighborhood. When the density of an idea inside one of these closed loops gets high enough, it creates this massive pressure cooker effect. So if you're trying to force a market tipping point, you absolutely must abandon shallow mass marketing. If you're targeting scattered, fragmented demographics spread out across a wide map, that gives you absolute zero momentum. Instead, true momentum requires condensing your cognitive capital directly inside dense, localized consumer clusters. Once that tiny elite systemic cell reaches critical mass, the ideas multiply aggressively. They explode outward, painting the entire map. You literally have to focus intensely on these dense, local clusters before you can ever hope to take over the broader market. That brings us to part three, piercing the ambient overstory, anchoring the brand. Gladwell poses a seriously fascinating question here. Are you operating your brand inside an isolation matrix? Because think about it. If your proprietary solutions, your sales pitches, and your messaging are all just floating alone in a void, completely disconnected from the broader conversations happening out there in society, they will suffocate. Gladwell actually calls these sweeping societal conversations overstories. Your brand messaging simply cannot operate inside an isolation matrix, like some solitary castle just floating out there in the dark. To actually scale an enterprise today, you have to anchor your proprietary solutions directly within the active, ambient narratives of society. That is the cultural overstory. It's this massive, translucent, flowing narrative sweeping across the culture that people are already deeply invested in. By projecting upward and locking directly into that flowing cloud, you connect to the current cultural consciousness. And when you do that, boom, organic retention secured.
Now we have to look at the flip side. Part 4. The dark side manipulations. Weaponized epidemics.
Because these three pillars we just talked about, they aren't just clever little marketing tools. They are powerful and sometimes dangerous societal levers. Gladwell details a much darker reality where bad actors systematically manipulate these exact mechanics to devastating effect. Take the opioid crisis, for example. According to Gladwell's analysis, savvy, ruthless operators identified vulnerabilities in the cultural overstory regarding pain management. Then, they essentially purchased hyper-connected superspreaders, highly influential doctors and clinics localized in dense geographic clusters. The result was a literally engineered epidemic that paralyzed entire health and economic systems. We have to recognize these algorithmic manipulations if we want to discern what trends are actually organic and what is a weaponized epidemic.
Which leads us to our final step, Part 5. Architecting your social epidemic, the sovereign playbook.
So how do we actually use this framework constructively in today's economy? Well, it comes down to a really specific three-step audit playbook. First, right now, audit your entire customer base, but completely ignore the noisy 98%. Step 2, meticulously identify that top 2% of hyper-connected agents who actually have the leverage to tip your brand over the edge. Step 3, design customized surprise packs just for them. Treat them like the absolute royalty of your network. According to Gladwell's framework, this is exactly how you stop passively running a business and start architecting a true movement. I'm going to leave you with this final, highly provocative thought. The future belongs not just to those who work hard, but to those who deeply understand the rules of the network. So will you be the architect or the victim of the next engineered social epidemic? The choice is entirely yours. Keep learning the game of the network, stay curious, and be sure to join us back here for our next explainer. Have a fantastic